Hiya! I'm very pleased to get to talk to you all at last about Group Ironman. It's been such a long time since we were on that RuneFest stage, or when we could have RuneFests, where we talked about the major infrastructure work that was going to be needed to make old school RuneScape handle permanent groups in the way that RS3 does. Now, it wasn't a straight backport either. We needed you to be able to join a group not just for clans, but for Group Ironman as well, so that you could be in your clan and your group without them interfering with each other, so that you can keep playing the game the way you want to play it. So that, of course, took more time. We hope it's going to be worth it in the long run. Anyway, you can see the progress in the form of the clan system live in old school RuneScape, and now that that's stable, we're delighted to be able to build on it to form the Group Ironman groups that you've been waiting for so long. So let's go through the basics. Firstly, groups will be between 2 and 5 players. You'll be able to fight monsters together, share your tradable resources with each other, maybe visit each other's player-owned houses. Now, building on that, we're hoping that along with letting Group Iron players go to each other's houses, like non-Irons do, we'd like to be able to let existing Iron accounts have guests in their player-owned houses too, and we should be able to build that into the same work we're doing for Group Ironman, so that'll be a little benefit for the rest of the game as well. Now, that brings us to high scores. We know that competition is a big part of gaming for many people. Not everyone, sure, but a lot of people. So Group Ironman is due to have high scores that will let you show which is the greatest group of them all, which group is superior to all the other Iron buddies out there. Now, that of course means that we need you all to be starting afresh on an even playing field, rather than having existing high-end accounts buddying up as a Group Ironman group in the first place. Otherwise the high scores would just be full of existing high-end accounts. So we're going to need you to all start afresh from that. Now, here's Mods Elena to tell us about how the groups will be formed.
Thank you, Ash. Let's talk about your journey as a Group Ironman. We all know Tutorial Island. Before leaving Tutorial Island, you would get a new option to start as a Group Ironman by going to the node. On screen, we're displaying one version of the node. Keep in mind this is just a concept and the final design is not finalized yet. It may change before launch. The node is a new area only accessible to Group Ironman. On the node, you'll meet the Group Ironman tutor. The Group Ironman tutor is similar to the existing Ironman tutors and would provide you with a brand new armor only for Group Ironman and completely free. The reason we're making a new area for Group Ironman is so that it's easy to group together. If you're only surrounded by other Group Ironman, you know that every other person is a potential teammate. Additionally, on Tutorial Island, there's a restriction where you can't actually chat to other players. We're removing that for the node so you can actually talk to people before grouping with them. Some people have already decided on their Group Ironman, which I think is great. Some people are really prepared. Others, don't worry if you haven't decided on your group yet. We will have official group finding worlds to make it easier for you to find others. And if you go to the node and you end up not having chosen a group yet, or you can't find anyone, don't worry. You'll be able to re-choose your game mode upon leaving. So if you want to be a main account instead, or a regular Iron, you can do that. Another reason to have a brand new place for Group Ironman is so that existing groups can invite more people. Let's say a player in your group leaves. You shouldn't doom everyone else in the group just because one person ruins the fun for everyone. What you can do is pop over to the node, invite a new person to the group. So like Ash mentioned, only existing players can fill in the gap in a group. This is to protect the integrity of the game mode, so that no groups get an unfair advantage. A group that has never had any other members and kept to the original group that it was when it was made on the node, that should be recognized. We're introducing something called Prestige status, where you lose the status if you invite a new member to the group, but we want to recognize those original groups as they were. And we hope to be able to present these on the high scores, so that you can show the whole world that you truly stand alone together.
Thanks for watching. Now, back to the studio.
And welcome back, and we are joined by Mods Elena on the sofa. Now, before we get into the Group Ironman questions and the details, which she's kindly volunteered to answer, let's ask a question from the chat. It's been asked by a lot of people. Kieran, I'm looking to you for this answer. Group Ironman when?
Early to mid-autumn, or fall if you're American and don't understand what autumn is. We don't understand what fall is either, so, it goes both ways. But early to mid-autumn, so not too far in the future. We're really, really excited because obviously this has been a one we've all been waiting for a long time. So
I heard it's because leaf fall down from tree.
It makes sense. It does make sense. And I'm quite looking forward to, can you imagine, right? Having a live stream or posting a blog, and it's not for the people asking when Group Ironman's being released, because it will have been released. That's an exciting prospect. But let's get into the Group Ironman questions anyway. Mods Elena, first question I have is, can you tell us in more detail how recruitment will work?
Sure. So recruitment will only be possible on this new place that we call the Node.
The Node, yeah.
Yeah. Most players will probably just form their groups as they leave Tutorial Island. So there's a direct link from Tutorial Island to the Node. They will go there straight away. But if you're an existing group, you have to return to that place, to the Node, to recruit these new players to join your group.
Okay. Can you confirm how big groups are going to be?
Yeah, they're going to be 2 to 5 players.
Okay. Awesome. So what happens if somebody does leave the group? Unfortunately, that might well be a prospect. You touched on it in the video, but can you give us a bit more info?
Sure. So when a player leaves the group, obviously that's a bummer. We don't want that to happen. And you kind of leave people behind. But let's say that maybe they're inactive, you have to go. At that point, there are 2 ways we can do this. We can either let them keep their status and remain a Group Ironman, at which point you'd just have a bunch of gaps in your new group, so you'd be the leader of a new group, and you could go to the Node and invite a bunch of new people and just start your journey all over again. The problem with that is that, let's say you have a bunch of items, you're a really progressed Group Ironman, and then you get a bunch of new group members and you give them all your items, and then you leave. Now this fresh new group has a bunch of high-level items, which seems a bit unfair. So what I've been thinking about is just having an option where if you want to keep your Group Ironman status upon leaving the group, you could then choose to keep your status and lose your tradable items. That way you can't give them away for free to everyone else. But I recognize that some people are really precious about their items. They earn these, so in that case, I think they should be able to leave the group, but as a main account. So that's essentially de-ironing as a Group Ironman would be to just leave the group.
Well, that's really awesome. I mean, it seems like a really tricky balance for us to try and keep the competition fair for Group Ironman.
Exactly.
But also not get on everyone's nerves because people are going to leave, people are going to be inactive, and you might want to form new groups and find new members. So
it's going to happen, sadly.
So towards the end of that last answer, you kind of mentioned generous players wanting to give stuff away for free, and then we saw in Jimmy's awesome video people stealing stuff from other players. Yeah. Are you concerned about some group members perhaps being a bit nefarious and stealing items from shared storage and stuff?
A little bit, yeah. That's always a risk, right? When you lend people items, you never really know if they're gonna run away with it, but that's really hard for us to limit as well, and we don't want to limit free trade, right? That's really old school, so...
Not again.
Exactly. So we just rely on the groups, really, to do what you feel is right. If you trust your group members, lend them your items. But you don't have to. You can work together with them without giving them everything, right?
That makes sense to me. So I guess the advice we're going to give is a short, blunt, choose good friends.
Exactly.
As always. I mean, that goes for life. That goes for Group Ironman. That is just a life through tip right there from Mods Sween. Don't say we don't give you anything here on Summit Summit. So for Ironmen, they have to take on bosses alone, right? When you go to kill, say, General Grotto, nobody else can do damage to the boss, otherwise you don't get the loot.
Exactly.
is that different for Group Ironman? Can they form a group and fight the boss together?
Yeah, that's really something we wanted to nail down, is that you can have those bosses, those boss interactions along with your friends, just like a main account. Obviously, if someone outside of your group hits that boss, then you don't get anything. Same as regular Ironman.
Because that's like kind of essentially the core idea is that the Ironman restrictions are widened to your group.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So the last question we have before we go to the chat questions, a really conceptual one here, so really speculative, I imagine. How do you think players will approach playing Group Ironman compared to regular Ironman?
It's going to be different, because obviously you can assign people to do the jobs you don't want to do. So let's say I hate rune crafting, I'll just send Kieran to do my rune crafting.
Because he loves it, yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely some planning and delegation that can be done, but I could also see this being a really great way of introducing new people to Ironman. I've heard so many people say that they don't want to try Ironman because they have to do everything alone. It's tedious. This way you can actually get a little help along the way. So.
It lightens the grind, and obviously everyone already knows old school, it's quite grindy. Ironman pushes that a little bit further. This will let you get some of that experience of like that satisfaction you get as an Ironman when you really obtain like a hard to get reward. But yeah, it's going to be really awesome. Like to me, this is the social way to experience old school RuneScape. So we'll move on to chat questions.
It is, yeah. So I was just going to add a little bit more before we move on, which is I've never really given Ironman much of my time. I prefer to play my main account. But I think knowing that other players, my friends, will hold me accountable to carry on to keep on the grind, I'm hoping it will kind of push me more into that mindset of things. Maybe I'm just naive, but I've kind of got this like idealized version. It's going to play out like a D&D campaign where you'll have your set roles, and that's just how it's going to kind of unravel.
And then in reality, it's going to be like, sweet, where are my 1,000 anglerfish? You said you'd fish me 1,000 anglerfish. Where are they? You said they'd be in my bank by tomorrow.
Like, Kieran, I'm hungover. Leave me alone. Okay, let's take some questions from the chat. Do you want to kick us off, Kieran?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a question from Martin Jensen on Twitter. How are untradables going to work in Group Ironman? Could you just trade your fire cape over to somebody else within the group?
We're going to leave untradables just as they are. Yeah, that's really it. You can't trade fire capes, you can't trade infernal capes, all that stuff.
So it'll be like, you could get help with the resources and
Exactly,
supplies
yeah.
and whatnot that you'll have to get the fire cape, but we're not going to facilitate trading untradables. Makes sense.
Okay, and the next question we've got is from Pure Spam. He asked, will you get experience versus other players in Group Ironman?
A very low amount of experience.
Okay.
We've found that if you don't get experience, then people can get these really weird niche account builds that just won't level up ever, so you can keep like, I don't remember exactly what kind of builds there is, but yeah, you can basically gain no XP, so you can stay at that combat level or that certain level forever and just get fed all the supplies and weapons and gear that you need from others in the group. So a slow, like, low amounts.
We got a big question coming in from Max Life asking, will banks be shared? Is there a private and a group bank?
So we're aiming at providing an additional shared storage. So you would still have your own bank, but what we'd really, really love to do as well is just having that shared place. I imagine that would be interactable, I guess, in like every normal bank. So you'd have like an extra option there to go into the shared storage. If we are to do this, this would have to be only accessible on the same world at the same time. Kind of like the clan system that some people are aware of, that you can't access like the coffer in different worlds at the same time. It would work the same way.
Makes sense.
So we've got a lot of curious players asking a lot about like very niche questions that are relevant to them and what they're planning to do. And there's tons of them. I think we're going to have to be cruel and probably draw a line somewhere, but we'll continue for now. So Waldron asks, will Group Ironman groups be able to enter instanced PVM encounters like Zulrah and Hydra together?
No, we're keeping those the same. It's basically the same as untradables in that sense, yeah.
If it's intended to be a solo encounter, it remains a solo encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. We got an amazing question from Optimus McBooty asking, will Mod Ash be in my group if I give him uncooked lobsters?
You'd have to ask him. I can't answer that for him.
Probably something like tea more than uncooked lobsters, perhaps. But
Maybe.
But hey, you'll have to message Ash on Twitter to find it.
All right, let's take one more question from the chat, and the ones we've got and unanswered, we'll carry them over to an upcoming Q&A, just to make sure we spend a lot of time digging into the cool Summer Summit stuff. So Stewie5 asks, can only the group do Theatre of Blood together, or can other people join the raids?
So initially, the idea was that you could only do it with the group, but that is very restrictive and very punishing if someone in your group suddenly leaves or is on holiday, right? You don't want Kieran going on holiday to like delay in our TOB grind or something. That would not be great. So we've decided to just allow anyone to group with anyone. It's way easier.
I don't think it's so unreasonable to require people to like sync up holidays just to make sure that doesn't happen. A group Ironman vacation, perhaps.